Hi, everybody. Leah Slaughter. Hope you are doing well. Excited to talk today a little bit more about our model and answer some of your questions about why we target the areas that we target, not only for our own investment portfolio, but also for how we help guide you on your journey. Before we get started, let's talk about some of the upcoming classes. On April 20th, we're going to talk about how to properly calculate returns to help maximize your profit. I talk about this a lot, but one of the mistakes that we see investors make frequently is you run your numbers based on what you originally paid and what you originally put down, while not taking into consideration that all the sitting equity acts as more money you have in the deal. So we're going to go over how that looks, how it changes the returns, and that'll probably segue into a conversation on why we utilize cash out refinances and 1031 returns to maximize your return on your cash on cash return. And then after that, we're going to talk about extreme value plays and our crazy rehabs. And this is going to be an interesting one because those of you that follow me on Facebook, you get an idea for the types of properties that we buy and renovate. But for those of you who haven't seen that, this is probably going to be the first time you see some of the houses that we dive into. One of the properties that we'll be talking about is a home that quite literally had no floors. And I'm not talking it was missing the wood floors or tile floors. I'm talking you walked in the front door onto dirt. And so I'm going to show you some of what we've been doing and just a little bit how crazy we are in our free time. And of course, you can always go on to our Facebook to see upcoming events. We've got a full class schedule all the way through summer. And then I've got a couple bonus classes we're going to be throwing in. So keep out your eyes open for the invite to that. And of course, you can also watch all of our past classes going back about 2 years on our website under media, or you can go to any of our different channels like YouTube or different podcasts that we post to as well. And so certainly there's a wealth of knowledge out there. And one of the things that we're going to be focusing on a lot over the next few months is updating you on what the market is doing. We've been talking a lot for many, many years about what we expected the market to do, and we're infinitely pleased that it's following exactly what we projected and perhaps even more than what we thought was coming. But what I'm most excited about is what is still yet to come. And so we're going to talk a little bit about why we target the areas we target and how we scope and look for properties based on that model. And we're going to really focus hard the next few months to get everyone up to speed on what the market's doing, what we think the market's going to continue to do, and where the opportunities still are. So before I begin, as always, everything we're going to talk about today is my best guidance and judgment based on years of not only owning and operating a real estate investment and management firm, but also as a high volume real estate investor myself. Of course, there's no crystal ball. There is no guarantees in any type of investment, and all investments are subject to risk. But certainly we believe, and I believe, that real estate is the best tool to propel you forward towards retirement or towards passive income to help replace whatever income it is that you earn. Of course, we're one tool in that toolbox. As I always say, we're going to give you our best guidance, but then we're also going to refer you to those people that we believe can help you on your journey. And if there's a question we can't answer, or there's a contact that we think you would benefit from being connected to, we will certainly do that. Our goal is always to all be on the same team. We're all in this investment journey together, and it's our blessing and our privilege to have you as part of the OmniKey family. So as always, as I mentioned, you can go on to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube and view previous recordings, and this one will be posted. They typically post about 48 hours after. And if you like to speed things up, which I've been told you can't really do that with me, but assuming you do, YouTube is definitely your best bet for that. All right, let's get started. So before I can help you understand why we target infill, I need you to understand what's unique about our market. What is unique about North Texas? So let's start there. Most of you know that we are the fourth largest metro in the United States. And this is really important to everything that we're going to talk about, because as we're discussing North Texas and our model, I want you to be thinking about what the other top metros are like. So of course, we're talking about places like LA and New York and Chicago. I want you to be thinking about what their business climate is. I want you to be thinking about what their political climate is. And I'm not talking left and right, I'm talking their landlord politics. And I want you to be thinking about what their average cost of living and cost of purchase a home is. Because again, we're number 4. And I want you to be thinking about how we compare to everybody else our size, because that's key to everything that we do. Now, as I continue, feel free to ask questions along the way, and I will get to them as I go. So number one, let's talk about the booming population. And one of the things that I think a lot of people don't understand about what's happening here is this massive population boom. And it's not just people moving here like they normally move here. It is people being moving here in droves because of their employers relocating. And so we've got two types of migration. We've got migration one of people who just want out of these high dense areas, like all the other largest metros, unlike us, that are densely populated without a lot of land mass, and they want out. And that was already happening. Before COVID, we were talking about numbers. I remember if you go back about 10 years, we were talking about 440 people a day moving here. And then before COVID, we got up to about 545 people a day. And now it's just kind of through the roof. And there's a lot of factors that came into play with COVID. But at the end of the day, a lot of people were looking for something that offered a few things in one. And so they wanted space, they wanted to be able to spread out, and that high density living that really hurt a lot of areas like New York and like LA. It not only hurt in the fact that they had the cases spreading so quickly, but also the way they had to shut it down because of that. And so they started looking for areas that also offered that space in parallel with an incredible job opportunity because of their jobs market. And we still sit here. We were an incredible jobs market before. We've always been business minded here in North Texas, and in times of crisis. And in the last recession, for example, we were growing, we were booming, we were building our airports and building our roads. And I'm going to focus on that a little bit in a moment. But the bottom line is that the relocation that we were already seeing was astronomical. And what COVID did is it propelled it to the next level, because not only were people looking to move and try to find an area that fit that criteria of the spread out, but also a large employment center. But in addition to that, the employers were relocating. And so as much as we were already seeing the relocations going into this, now it has just boomed. And so what's happened is our population has absolutely skyrocketed. So right now we sit at a population just over 7.7 million. And I think that when you look at how much we've grown, and we're going to talk about city growth versus suburb growth in a moment, it's really quite incredible. And so we are the most populous metro in both Texas and in the entire southern United States. We've had about a 3.5 million population increase in the last 8 to 10 years. And so it's really significant numbers here in Texas. Now let's talk about DFW just by itself. And so first and foremost, our area grew around 1.5% a year average. And that's looking at DFW as a whole. And so we lead the US in population growth. But when we look at growth going all the way back to 2010, that growth is just incredible. And so I want you to really look at the numbers looking at the suburbs as opposed to just looking at the numbers that we see in the main metro. Because I think that really at the end of the day, that is what makes North Texas so unique. And so what I mean by that is if you look at Dallas County, we grew about 10.4%. And so Dallas County, of course, is going to encompass the city of Dallas and then all of the areas around Dallas that are the closest in suburbs. Now, a lot of you have worked with me for a long time, and you know that that's not really the area that we talk about investing in, and that's certainly not the area that I personally invest in. Now, there's a few reasons for that. Number one, we're going to talk about is that infill model that we preach so heavily. But in addition to that, it's because of affordability and where the returns are. We don't just target infill areas and infill property because we get a better price, but it's also because the rent ratio to value is much stronger. And that's what allows us to do the types of deals that we do. So now when we look at the next on the list, Collin County, this is the county that you see so much in the news. And so this is where you've got Plano and Frisco. So your Liberty Mutuals, your State Farms, a lot of your big Fortune 500s, that's where they went. And so they really capitalized on being one county north of the main city and getting all of the benefits of getting away from the crime rate, getting away from the congestion. And it allowed for so much growth in shopping centers and schools and all of this new development to really entice people to want to come out that way. Denton County is one county to the north on a different highway. So one's on the east side, one's on the west side. You'll notice they similarly grew 36%. You go to the outlying counties like Kaufman County, Rockwall County, you look at Grayson County, all of these counties that we target on an everyday basis, and we're talking 30 to 40% growth, which to me is astronomical. But what really stands out is how it compares to the inner city growth. Now, why is that? Let's talk about that, because I think that that is key to everything that we do. Number one, it's supply and demand. So let's look at statistics on new home construction and how many properties were brought on the market. If you've watched any of my classes in the last 2 years, there's been a heavy focus on talking about this massive supply shortage of homes and how so much of it was filled with apartments, which had COVID not happened, perhaps would have been okay. But COVID did happen, and a lot of people got out of apartment living. And since most of these apartments being built to fill that void are Class A or A plus, they're more expensive than the rental properties that we do in our suburb play. So in 2021, 59,000 homes were started. There is a shortage of 170,000 or more homes. Now, when I taught this same information back in 2020, we were a 40,000 home shortage. We are now at over 170,000 home shortage. Nationwide, just as an FYI, there's a shortage of 1.35 million homes. Pretty incredible numbers. So let's talk about the economy here in North Texas, because this is really what drives it all home. So number one, DFW, and this is not Texas, this is DFW, we're home to more than 70,000 businesses and 10,000 corporate headquarters. We have 45 Fortune 1000 companies in DFW. We have over 2,500 companies with more than 100 employees headquartered here. We have 23 Fortune 500 companies. Our unemployment rate as of January was already back down to 4.1%, and that was before the record job growth we've had the last 2 months. Of course, we still have no state or corporate income tax. We have diverse employment, meaning that there's no one sector that makes up the majority of our jobs that could take us down. We continue our Texas Enterprise Fund, which was established back in 2003. $650 million to attract businesses in Texas, resulting in $35 billion in capital investment from out-of-state companies. Similarly, this is 4 times what it was last time I presented. And finally, DFW created an astronomical 1 million jobs since 2010. In the last 12 months alone, through COVID, over 121,000. Our market is strong. Our economy is strong, but at the end of the day, the employment boom that is happening here, paralleled with our lower than average cost of living for a market our size, is what makes us so unique. So let's go back to those other top 3 metros we talked about, metros like Chicago and LA and New York. What's the average home price? We sit somewhere in the low 300,000 range, and in the suburbs that we operate in, it's high 200s. How many of those cities can say the same? And our pay is about the same. As a matter of fact, there was an article that just came out talking about the number of high-paying jobs that have been created in Texas and North Texas, and the average pay rate of the average job being created right now, and it's through the roof. And I think there's this misconception that Texas had a lot of jobs created, but they were low-paying jobs, and in fact, it was the exact opposite. Now, there's a lot more things that are unique about DFW. As I mentioned, the large employers in the job centers right now are moving out of the city. In fact, if you look at the Fortune 500 companies that have relocated here through this last employment boom, practically all of them have gone into the suburbs, all of the ones that made the news for sure. The benefit is you're able to live just about anywhere in the suburbs, be able to find employment, communicate, and be able to get that employment because of our job market here. And then you can drive to those jobs because of our highway system and our spread out nature. If you go to LA, the heart of the city is in the heart of LA. You go to Chicago, the heart of the city is in the heart of Chicago. And the closer in you get, the more expensive it gets, but the further out you go, the further you are from the jobs. The unique thing about Dallas-Fort Worth is we are based around suburbs that act as their own city centers. They have their own employers. I talk about Sherman and Denison all the time, one of the largest metro areas that I buy in. It's the fastest growing MSA right now. They've grown an astronomical amount. They have their own city center. They have their own employment network, Texas Instruments, Tyson Foods, Finisar, massive employers. And that's the difference between DFW, and that is why our prices have stayed low. And in my opinion, we still remain significantly undervalued because of the fact we're artificially kept down because we don't grow city outward, we grow suburb outward. And so if you drive through Dallas, you'll hit one suburb and then a bunch of bare land, and then another suburb and then a bunch of bare land. And those suburbs grow from the inside out instead of in other areas where you grow from the inner city out. And so it gives us access to so much more land mass. And because of our incredible highway system that they've spent years working on and growing even through the recession, we've been able to keep up with traffic patterns. Now, do we not have traffic? No, of course we have traffic. But you can literally take these highway systems and these toll roads and go 70, 75 miles an hour for most of your job. So if you live 30 miles from where you work, you're not looking at an hour and a half commute or a 2-hour commute like you are in every other metro that we compare to. And so it allows people to live in so many areas, and there's so much landmass to be developed that it has kept our prices down. And that is why now you're seeing this crazy 20 to 30% appreciation every year, because we're finally catching up to where we should be, and yet we still have so much further to go. When I can still buy rental properties for $200,000 or less, that tells you how we compare to every other market of our size, whose job market doesn't compare to us. Their cost of living doesn't compare to us. Their stability of growth doesn't compare to us. The number of people living above the poverty line doesn't compare. I can go on and on and on. And it's the uniqueness of North Texas that makes all of this possible. So as I mentioned, our highway system is quite incredible. We have the second largest number of freeway miles per capita in the United States. We have an easy to navigate bus and light rail system within our inner suburbs, high speed limits, HOV lanes, and toll roads. All of this is designed to allow people to travel a longer distance in a shorter amount of time, which opens these larger areas to population growth and development. And it keeps our prices artificially lower, which is why, again, we are seeing so much appreciation right now with this growth and boom. Now let's talk about when we're targeting these outlying suburbs, what is it that we're looking for? Number one, we're looking to be along highways. We want cities with their own employment centers, but also drivable to the major main metro employment centers. We want lots of redevelopment and growth going on. So that means things being bulldozed and rebuilt, new schools, new shops, all sorts of things coming in brand new. Because at the end of the day, if we buy into an area that has to continue to grow and develop to meet the population needs of the growth, that's going to be a much better recipe for success if there's a softening than buying in the inner city where they already have enough development to make it if they have to. We want to be close to amenities like schools and shopping, lakes, recreational. One of the benefits of being in North Texas is that lower cost of living. There's a reason why we have shops and outdoor malls and outlets everywhere. It's because people like to go out and spend money, because they do tend to have more of it than in many other areas. And so by being close to those recreational activities, it allows us to make people want to live in those areas that we're investing in. We do not want to be in high risk, high crime areas like most of Dallas and Tarrant County. Tarrant County encompasses Fort Worth. It's not actually Fort Worth County, it's Tarrant County. So those are your two main city centers. I did a great webinar about 1.5 years ago on where am I buying property and why. And so I encourage you to go back and watch that, because we delve into some more of these cities and what they offer and why they fit this criteria and this model so perfectly. Now let's talk about infill, which is why we're all here today. What is infill? And I've kind of put all the bullet points I'm going to cover, but I just want to have a conversation with you, because I can put statistics up here and read it to you all day long. But let me talk to you about my journey and why I got drawn to infill and why we built our model around this. So first and foremost, what is infill? When we talk about infill properties, we mean a few things. We mean that we are buying in a developed city or a developed suburb, but we want to be in the center of that city, in an existing area or an existing neighborhood where there's redevelopment happening. And by redevelopment, that could be remodeling of existing properties. It could be demolishing and rebuilding existing properties. It could mean zoning changes, which we see all the time in areas like Sherman, Denison, and Greenville. It could be something as simple as taking an empty plot of land in the middle of neighborhoods and turning it into a small neighborhood. All of those, in my opinion, fit our model of infill. In addition, we look for a lot of new construction, because the new construction is how we see that there's a drive for development and builders to come in and build these cities from the ground up. Most of the areas we target were originally developed in the late 1800s to early 1900s, and then again had redevelopment between the 50s and the 70s, and now we're in another development boom. And so again, areas like Sherman and Denison and Greenville really fit that model. One of the things that we love about infill is the difficulty in determining value. Now that seems funny, right? Because when we look at comparables and trying to value a property, we want great comps. We want identical properties so that we get great appraisals and we get great access to financing. But when we look from a property tax standpoint, if we buy a brand new home surrounded by 50 identical brand new homes, the tax assessor comes in January 1st to determine your lot value where your property taxes are based on. And it's quite easy for them to identify the value of that property because you've got 50 counterparts that already told them what it's worth. When we look at infill property, you have one property surrounded by maybe 10 older remodeled, maybe one that still needs to be torn down, 6 or 7 new, all different sizes, all different looks, all different styles. And it makes it very difficult for them to value. And so when we look at the model of buying infill property, what we find is artificially our property tax bills stay lower. Now, why is that important? If you're talking about a property having a difference between a $500 a month tax bill and say a $350 a month tax bill, that almost equals your total cash flow on the entire transaction that you make on a monthly basis. And so we could be talking the difference between a 3 or 4% return and an 8 or 9% return. In fact, when we go into a lot of our infill properties, their original assessed value is land only or close to land only. And often we find it takes them many, many years to even get close to true market value because they have so much difficulty valuing it. I did a project in Blue Ridge in Collin County where I bought a stack of properties on Business 78 and a few on other streets around. I have properties appraising today in Blue Ridge worth over $200,000 that still remain tax assessed under $100,000 2 years post renovation. Those are the types of benefits that we get when we look at infill property. Now, does it happen every time? Is it guaranteed? Of course not. There's no guarantees. But statistically, do we see that they have a very hard time hitting full value, which keeps our returns much higher because property taxes remain lower? Yes. In addition to that, when you've got the market appreciating 20, 30% a year, the tax assessor can't keep up, and they won't keep up. And so what we found is now our values of those of us who own property have gone up so high, the tax assessors are still catching up from 3 years ago. And so right now, when we project our numbers, we're going to provide you what it is today and if and when it ever gets to full value. But in reality, our hope is by the time it gets to full value, your rents have skyrocketed, your values skyrocketed even more, and all that equity could be used to 1031 exchange and go double that portfolio. And so all of the benefits of infill fit right into that model of our 2 to 6 year hold, our 1031 exchange, the doubling the portfolio, everything that I hammer home, all of that is possible because of our infill model. One of the other things I love about infill property is the uniqueness of the properties. We actually find that we often get more rent on an infill new construction or remodeled home than we do on a home in the middle of a neighborhood of conforming homes. Why is that? There's that unique factor. When you walk into a neighborhood and each home has its own identity, when you're a tenant, it makes it very easy for that to be your home, for that to feel like home, for that to feel like something unique that you have. When you're in the middle of a neighborhood where every single home looks exactly the same, you've got 2 or 3 on the market, there's really not a lot of playroom to give an identity to that home. And so what we find is that tenants tend to turn around pretty quickly in those properties. In addition, the prices are much higher. And so when we look at those areas where you've got a developed neighborhood, again, they have an easier access to being able to price that out too. And they really have no desire to work with investors because they don't need to. They're going to work with first-time home buyers, and that's really what their model is. There's so many benefits to infill. Perhaps one of my favorite benefits of infill is the odds of having an HOA are almost zero. And I am not a proponent of HOA for rental properties, except in unique circumstances where the returns make it worthwhile. So typically infill property are going to be closer into the heart of the city. So typically we're working in maybe a 10 or 20 block radius around the downtown of that city. And so that also means that you are in some of the best parts of the city in terms of proximity, location, and desirability. Again, the pricing is often much better than going into those bigger neighborhoods. And most of those bigger neighborhoods are happening further out. And so in reality, by going with the infill model, you're actually able to get even closer in. All of the areas that we work in infill are in these suburbs and these high targeted areas that meet that criteria I mentioned earlier. And one of my big criteria is crime. Now, I can't really talk to you about crime statistics, but what I can tell you is when I'm looking at my own acquisitions, how I feel. And there are two key factors that I play in the back of my mind when I'm trying to decide if this is an area that I want to buy in. Factor number one is, do I have to cage my AC unit? Now, everywhere has crime, it happens, but vandalism and theft is very, very rare across our portfolios. Why? Because I won't buy in areas where I feel like I have to cage my AC. Now, what's criteria two? Criteria two for me is, would I be comfortable putting my family member there? And the answer is no, then I would not buy that property. I went away from my model one time and I bought an apartment complex in an area outside of DFW, and I never would have allowed one of my children to live there, but the numbers were so good, I broke my model. Did I make great money? Yep, I made great money. Did the project turn out great? It did, but I broke my own model. And that's rule 101, you never do. And the interesting thing is, as you get to be a higher volume investor and as you build this model, and because you're going to take my model and you're going to tweak it to your needs and your goals and your drive, you're going to find times where you are tempted to break your model. I talk a lot about our apartment complex we own in downtown Wiley that Michael just won't sell. I've tried to talk him into it for so many years, and he's attached to it. And again, it's breaking the model. And one of the benefits of getting to the level that we're now at is that we can break the model occasionally. But I do laugh about it because certainly it's the same criteria today for me and my model that it was 10 years ago. And I wholeheartedly believe 10 years from now it will be the same. And so we all have our model we love and we follow our model as best we can. But all of this is generalities. You might find the perfect property in the heart of the city in an HOA neighborhood, and the numbers may look fantastic, and you may decide to jump on it. And we have customers do that. And sometimes we're going to present properties that offer that opportunity. And that's something always to keep in mind. So let's say that the infill model is 95% of what we recommend, and that 5% is for all the extra, for the fluff, for the one-up unique deals. And that is the benefit of being in a market that's strong, is that we have those types of opportunities to go outside kind of what we consider the norm. One of the things I love about infill is the lot sizing, and really it's just the non-conformity of how they look. When we go into these infill lots, we also find that we have more mature landscaping and trees, which in that whole area creates a beautiful vibe. And when we go into the suburbs as opposed to the inner cities, we often get much larger lots, backyards, space. And again, that goes back to one of the big drivers of why people love Texas and why they move to Texas. I personally live on 2 acres and I'm building a new home on 35 acres. So I'm all for land. But you have to remember, Texans love space. We love our guns, we love our dogs, we love our kids. And so what happens is we try to find properties that accommodate that here. And most people here do have pets. And so when we're looking at just the what people look for and what they love in a property, when we can provide them a true backyard space to make their own in a unique looking property in the heart of their suburb, right by employers and where all the redevelopment and new stuff is going in, that's really the true recipe for success. And of course, we want to do all that in a market that's growing, that has a housing shortage, so there's not enough housing to fill the need, which increased supply means increased rents. For the first time, we saw double-digit rent increases in many areas, and that's been just a fantastic thing because historically rents go up at about 2.8, 2.9%. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is when all this redevelopment and money is going into an area, we're not just looking at appreciation. We're also looking at natural price growth because the city itself becomes more valuable. So as you have new schools come in and new shopping come in and new hospitals come in, more jobs coming in, the value overall of that entire area increases and the desirability of that area increases. And what was once a far out suburb like Wiley or Saxe or Levon, looking at areas like even Flower Mound, Louisville, what was once considered far away now is inner city. And so naturally the whole price of the area increases, the desirability increases, the just overall cost increases. And of course, as investors, all of that results in increased returns. Let's talk a little bit about why we target new construction in these infill areas as much as we can. We love the lower cost of maintenance and ownership because of them being new properties. New systems means that they haven't been abused and they haven't been used. It allows us to target these developing areas with lots of new infrastructure and heightened growth. And of course, that all is targeting where the employers are going. It also offers the reduced property taxes at the beginning of ownership, depending on how you time your buy and how long it takes them to reach full value for the assessment. Now, property tax assessments happen based on January 1st. So if you have a home that begins construction end of January and finishes end of April, it's going to typically be assessed at land only value. And so from April when you close all the way through the following January, your property tax bill may be $20 or $30 a month. So that could be a savings of $300-400 per month just in the first year. And so when you average that over your average ownership of 2 to 6 years, it astronomically increases your return. In addition to that, you can often buy in at the beginning of development before prices skyrocket as the area becomes more valuable and more developed. We also love the fact that we can warranty against a lot of the things that happen with new construction homes because of both builder warranties and extended home warranty protection options. So on most of our new construction, we're seeking what's called a 1-2-10 warranty. So that's basically a 1-year bumper to bumper, 2-year systems, plumbing, electrical, HVAC, and 10-year structural. We also look for manufacturer's warranties on many of the items that they put inside the properties. And then over and above that, we recommend and we put in place a Fidelity home warranty that if you buy it on a new construction home, the entire 4 years of coverage for years 2, 3, 4, and 5 costs less than around $1,000. And so reality, you're getting 5 years of as worry-free home ownership, as passive an investment as you can do while solely owning and operating your own acquisition. And that really is the best recipe for success. So one of the examples of the builder warranties we use is called Centricity. They used to be called bonded builders for those of you that have been with us for years. And this is an example of what that warranty package could look like. Now, many builders self-insure or self-warranty as well. And so this is just one example of one of the programs that we see. StructureSure is another. So if you want to do some research on how they compare to each other, you can feel free to do that as well. Now, this is where I'm going to kind of turn the table a little bit. I don't typically talk about the property that we have available. You all know we have it. You all know that we have lots of off-market inventory. But what a lot of people don't realize is even today, when there's very little inventory available, we still have tons of off-market opportunities for our customers. So I want to show you some of the examples of the types of properties we're doing right now. These properties are actually available. These are exclusive off-market properties for our investors, but use it as a general idea of the types of properties that we are looking at when talking about infill property, because all of these properties are infill. Before I begin, all of the numbers that we're going to discuss are not guarantees. They're, again, our best guesses based on what we expect in our years of working in this same environment. When we look at our property taxes, we look at land only value on new construction year 1, and then moving forward, we look at how long it takes and what we expect when property taxes get to full value. When you go into our investor portal, if you're a member, you will see that we have assumptions based on lending and assumptions based on lots of different factors, and we're always going to disclose what those assumptions are to you. We try to be as conservative as possible so that you know what to expect, and also give you an idea of worst case scenario when those taxes go all the way up. If you don't have big rent increases, what that could look like as well. So this is a property in Denison. So this is one of those areas we were talking about. And this is a builder that I've worked with for years. I build personally with him on my own investment journey. And we have 5 available right now, but there's 2 different floor plans. And this is kind of what we call the sweet spot in size. So anywhere from about 1,230 square feet to 1,251 square feet. Sometimes when we go into the 4-bedroom models, we'll go up into the 1,500 square foot range. But what we find is that 3-bedroom, 2-bath with or without a garage is usually your best sweet spot. So rents on this property are estimated between $1,600 and $1,700. This is a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1-car garage. You'll notice the board and batten vertical siding, the upgraded roof, all of the design features of the upgraded builds. We recommend all of your materials be things that are hardy and able to withstand tenant abuse. And so things like granite countertops, solid cabinetry, always going to want to put cabinet pulls on those cabinets, especially when we follow the trends like white painted cabinets. If they're grabbing them with their fingers, they get pretty grimy. And so you'll see, those of you following my Facebook journey with my rentals, I always put cabinet pulls on. You'll notice this has a different look to the backsplash. It's a beautiful subway tile, but it's an inverted black subway tile, very unique and on top of the point of what we're seeing right now in trends. We like to do vinyl flooring because it's extremely long wearing. We try to avoid carpet as much as possible. And then of course, we're doing upgraded fixtures, we're doing easy colors to touch up, thick moldings, all the different things that you want to make sure that that property stays in as good a condition as possible. So don't forget, one of the reasons we do our quarterly visits for our walkthroughs is so that we can make sure that we're having the tenants fix things as we go, and we try to stay ahead of signs of repair issues before they get out of control. And that all allows us to protect these properties as much as possible and keep them ready for the next time it needs to be tenanted or when it is time to sell. Now, looking at a pre-owned option, this is a pre-owned home in Van Alstyne. And so this is going north, and it's on the county line between Collin and Grayson County. So really good location. This one's in the middle of remodel right now. So these are the pictures during the remodel process. This is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1,219 square foot home. Price on this one is $210,000. Again, rents between $1,600 and $1,750. And you'll notice that even when we come in and we're remodeling these properties, we're following the same model. We stick to the similar color scheme for floors, for paints, and then we keep notes of what we use for these materials so that in between tenancies, it's easier to go back and touch them up as opposed to having to do full repaints every time. This is another example of a new construction property in Denison. We have 2 of these available. Again, you're going to notice that upgraded roof. You'll notice all the low-E vinyl windows, the modern finishes in terms of what's common and to be expected in today's farmhouse style. We focus more on the modern farmhouse vibe right now. It seems to be a nice middle ground. And certainly that's what people, when they've been watching HGTV and doing those things, this is the look that they love. So these are 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 1,330 square feet, so just a little bit larger. Rents between $1,550 and $1,650. And this shows you the inside of this one. Another wonderful builder, been working with them a very long time. We have 2 of these available. These are 3-bedroom, 2-bath, a little bit smaller at 1,198 square feet. Again, same level of finish out, same types of styles. You'll notice the big islands are all the craze right now. And this one rents estimated between $1,550 and $1,650. We have 2 of these available right now. We have 1 available. This is $215,000, 1,050 square foot, 3-bed, 2-bath. Again, rents estimated $1,550 to $1,650. You'll see all of these have some form of a big island because that's just all the craze right now. And this is a pre-owned property, and this is $185,000 in Greenville. So this is just to the east of McKinney. This is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, just under 1,300 square feet, and this is a 2008 build. This one is currently tenant occupied. Hopefully that helps you have an idea of the types of properties that we are looking at and the types of properties that we are constantly adding to our own portfolios. As I mentioned, each of us is going to develop our own investment model of what works for us. Some customers do all new construction, some do all pre-owned. If you're like me, you do a little bit of everything. And it's all about finding what works for you. And of course, all of our investment counselors love to speak with you and work through what your goals are, what your current situation is, and how we can help you get to that next level. Whether we're just managing for you and you're buying on your own, whether you're buying through us, we are here to help you and guide you. We're all one big family. We truly mean it when we say the OmniKey family, and our job and our goal is always to help you on that journey, and whatever role we can play in that journey, that's what we're here for. And so I will look and see if there's any questions, and other than that, I will look forward to seeing all of you in a couple of weeks. So does that mean all the properties on your portal fit Leah's criteria? So every property that is scoped and added to that portfolio comes through my email every single morning. And a lot of people don't realize I still play that active of a role, but the properties that go over to the investment team, over 90% of them come from me, and all of them still come across my desk. As I mentioned, about 95% of what we do is infill or remodeling in infill outlying suburbs. And that is, it really has always been our model. When we have access into some of the more inlaid areas closer to the suburbs, that are closer into the city, we certainly bring those opportunities to you. And I personally do buy some in those areas. And so it really, again, depends on what your model is going to be and what you're looking for. For someone who's looking to be as passive as possible and have as much consistency as possible, new construction is the best model. For someone who's trying to build a large portfolio with some diversity, looking at some of those other options are great too. One of the things that we have been focusing heavy on is looking at all areas outside of those inner cities that we avoid, the real high crime, high turnover areas, and capitalizing on what the Dallas market has been doing. And so there's lots of variety in what we present. I will tell you that we send flyers every day. Many of them never have time to make it on the portal. And so it's much better for you to be watching the flyers that come out multiple times a day than just looking at the portal. Now, the portal still has tons of inventory, don't get me wrong, but things are moving so quickly that those flyers are your best bet if you want to see every option that we're blasting out. Let's see. I have some questions about short-term rentals. I do not do short-term rentals in Dallas. My only belief in short-term rentals is in vacation resort locations. And so I am not a fan of that. And there's also a lot of things happening to regulate short-term rentals across many cities, and taxes and all sorts of things being put into place. So I do own and operate short-term rentals. I actually just sold one, and I have one I still have. And it is beachfront in Florida. And I only rent it out because I bought it for personal use. I do not believe in short-term rentals as an investment model. They're too volatile, they're too regulated, and it goes against everything that we believe from the standpoint of where you are the most secure. And so when we look at it, our investment journey and what we are trying to build for a portfolio, we want something that is market resistant, and short-term rentals are certainly not. Look what happened to that industry during COVID. And so that is not something that I would recommend. Questions about sizing of homes and what we prefer. My average home that I personally buy is between 800 and 1200 square feet. The cheaper a home that you can buy, generally, the better your return is going to be. And that often means the smaller square footages. And people right now, with the cost of living and the cost of gas and the cost of utilities and everything rising, a lot of people are going back into the smaller square footages. And another thing to keep in mind is a lot of builders right now are refusing to buy and build two-story homes. D.R. Horton just announced, for those of you that didn't see, that they're not even going to build any two-story homes in our market, and that's because of the availability of materials. And so there's been a big push back to those smaller one-story homes. And when we are targeting people that are not homeowners, people that are renters coming out of apartments, that square footage is what they're looking for because they want to keep their cost as low as possible. Most of our areas are anywhere from about 40 to 50% renters, and that number's going up because of this massive lack of inventory. And so at the end of the day, there's plenty of renters for every property, and that's another benefit of our market. Question about class of neighborhoods that we select. These aren't really a class of neighborhood, they're a mishmash. It's not like they're all crap or they're all great. Sometimes they're all one or the other, but we don't buy in terrible areas. We don't buy in your inner cities. We don't buy in the bad areas. The ones that make the news constantly, those are not the areas we're talking about. Again, my two criteria: do I need to cage my IC, and would I be comfortable letting my children live there or my family live there? So they're just an infill neighborhood. They're an older neighborhood. It has a lot of original people who built their homes that are still living there, aging out. It's got lots of new remodeled homes. You go into an area like Denison and it feels like half the city's already been rebuilt. And so it just depends on the street that you're buying on. These aren't really neighborhoods per se. They're all of the streets surrounding the downtown areas of these cities most of the time. Risk of tornadoes a concern for DFW market. I mean, we get strong thunderstorms. We get tornadoes sometimes. I've been doing this almost 17 years, and I've only had 2 storms in 17 years that caused tornado damage to houses, and one of them was straight line winds. It's very rare. We do have them. They don't touch down too frequently, and most of the time when they touch down, it's not in real populated areas. If you cross the Oklahoma border and you go into Oklahoma and beyond, there definitely is a risk for tornadoes, and much stronger tornadoes up there. And so when you get about halfway into Oklahoma, you're in the heart of Tornado Alley. We get a lot of rotation clouds here and a lot of thunderstorms, which of course you're insured for that. Your homeowner's insurance is going to protect against hailstorms and all those things. That's why we make sure that we recommend you to good insurance agents who write great policies. But one of the benefits of our market and having those storms is you'll get a new roof consistently. You'll file like maybe every 5 to 10 years. unlike other markets where your roof will age out before you can get an insurance paid claim on it. So in my mind, it's more of a benefit because most of us file a claim within 20 years and get, new windows, new roof, that type of thing at some point. So this question, do you support investors buying and rehabbing altogether or just sell after you rehab? We support at every stage of the journey. We have many people who buy property and need light rehabs, and we can handle that in-house. If you're fully gutting a property, then that's something that you would need to do, and then we can manage it when you're done. But the types of properties that need carpet, paint, granite, countertop, stainless, we can handle all of that for you. But if you're taking it down to studs and doing the level of work that like I do on my homes, that's not something that we do. We will sell homes after that's already been done. Is the email a flyer? So we send out a flyer email that basically has an available property, all of the numbers, the details, the photos, and that comes out if you've opted into our investment mailing list. There's a non-disclosure that comes with that, and there's some stuff that has to be set up there. So if you're not currently receiving that, you can email investments@omnikeytexas.com, and they will be able to get you set up to start receiving that. So there's more than one mailing list that we have. So there's the mailing list where you get access to our classes and all of that, and all of our education is always free. But there is non-disclosure forms that have to be signed before you can receive information that's specific to our off-market and properties that we market, so that it protects the list, of course. Let's see, if you haven't received a property flyer via email, you probably need to contact and either reconfirm your account or you haven't opted into that specific list. Let's see. A question about webinar from last week. That one should be posted hopefully tomorrow. I went back in and recorded a couple parts where the audio cut out, and so that should be uploaded, I would say, tomorrow or Friday at the latest. I appreciate the compliments, everybody. Perfect. Okay, let's see. Oh, this is a good question. So what percentage down should you be prepared for? Now, everyone knows rates have been going up, and depending on the type of lending you're going to do depends on what type of financing terms you're looking at. Right now, and really for quite some time, we recommend you put at least 25% down because your rate is going to be significantly better. I'm not a lender, I can't quote rates to you, but I can tell you that all of the people that we work with right now, unless you're going direct bank portfolio where you really will get the same rate with 20 and 25 most of the time with our people, you should be expecting 25% down. In the current rate climate, we're actually seeing better rates with our portfolio lenders than we're seeing with Fannie Mae conventional, but there's a difference in amortization between 25 and 30 year. So on a Fannie Mae loan, you're typically going to have a 30-year amortization, which it makes your cash flow higher, but the return is the same on both because a 25-year AM just means you're paying more to principal every month. Principal on a 30-year AM is about 3% every year in return. And if you go to a 25-year AM, the payment goes up. So your overall return is the same. It's just the amount of cash coming out of it as opposed to paying down the mortgage decreases. And if any of you need contact information for the lenders that we recommend or any of that, you can shoot an email to investments and we'll send that over to you. And if you want to schedule a call with one of the counselors, you can email them as well, or of course you can give them a call at extension 7 as well. I'll do one last call for y'all are so sweet. Thank you so much for the compliments. I'll do one last call for questions. And then of course, you guys know how to reach out if you ever have any questions and how to reach me. And I think that is all of them. But again, we're always available. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. And a couple questions on the properties that I talked about today, you can email or call investment team. At, again, investments at OmniKey Texas or that extension above, and they'll give you the information on that. We do provide a one-stop shop for all of these properties, whether you buy it on your own and bring it to us or whether we help you buy it. We still take it under our wing, give you the guidance and do all of that and handle the property management. And so we're all under one roof, all one company, all one team, one points of contact, and that's always been that way. Let's see, once you put a deposit down for a new build, will the price go up if building supplies or is new home property only listed would complete? This is a great question. And this is something that is very important to address. And so let me get this out there. There are a lot of people who went into what's called cost plus new construction contracts with other companies. And what that means is that if the price of supplies goes up, your price goes up. We used what's called a fixed price contract, meaning that your price is locked in. And so that's very important right now with the current supply climate. So if you're looking at properties anywhere, make sure you know what you're signing and that your price is a fixed price. Let's see, how do investors affect the broad market price? Are we driving up the price for owner occupied? No, the home buyers are driving up the prices. I read an article a couple weeks ago talking about how the average home in the closer in suburbs has 50 offers. And I can tell you just personally, a couple properties I've sold recently, the market is just crazy right now. Getting appraisal waivers, lots of cash offers. But you have to remember, most of the people relocating here are coming from these markets that are way more expensive, where they've sold homes and they have tons of cash and they're used to bidding up properties. But again, it's all possible because our market was so undervalued in the first place. Is it better to buy multi-unit? Right now, over 4 units, we're not seeing the returns as good as in the single or 1 to 4 family space. Now, again, that's 95%, so there's always going to be those unique ones. We did an almost $6 million apartment complex last week, and so we do those deals just not as frequently as we do the lower price point. I can tell you that I own, I don't know, somewhere approaching 30 million in real estate, and I'm probably 85%, maybe 80% single family. And so even at my size and my volume, that's still very much what I believe in. Michael and I are building a neighborhood right now of homes we're keeping for rental. And again, those are all single family homes. And so for me, my best returns and ease of ownership and management is always in the single family side. Yes, this class will be available on our YouTube channel. It should be posted tomorrow. There's no edits that need to be done to this one, and so that will be up tomorrow. All right, I think I've got everybody. Again, you need anything, you have any questions, we're always available. You've got all of our contact information. And otherwise, I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks for a class. And we'll definitely have lots of great information for you then. Everyone take care, have a wonderful afternoon. And again, thank you for being part of the OmniKey family. Take care.